What is going on? I want to welcome you from F4 for today, Tuesday, October 25th. I am your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my guy. It is Troy Sergey. And Troy, for the first time, joining me not just on a pod, but on a video. Dude, it's so good to see you. I really like that set you got going on behind you too, man. You got some cool piston stuff up.
Thanks, man. I know for me joining my first full season was the Allen Iverson year. So I got a glimpse of Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Ben Wallace when he came back the year after. But also my first ever game really watching was the 2008 Eastern Conference matchup with the Celtics, which we lost. But I got to see some good plays by Billups, and I even watched some of that 76ers series beforehand. So, yeah, the Pistons run deep in my veins. Rasheed Wallace, another guy I missed out that I got to watch. That was a part of that Iverson year, his last year with us. But I'm a big Sheed guy, and that '04 team, although I didn't watch them in '04, watched plenty of highlights, and I'm here. I'm a
And I
fan.
had to
I'm
get the
ready to go.
poster of it too, man. I just love the set design you have in the
Yeah,
background you have there,
thank
man.
you,
It's like,
sir.
yeah, it looks sick. But dude, so good to see you. Always good to talk Pistons basketball, NBA basketball. You and I had a pretty cool opportunity where you, me, and Jeff last week got to sit down and we got to watch Paulo Banchero versus Cade Cunningham in person.
Mhm.
And seeing Jaden Ivey, seeing Cade, seeing Bojan, seeing Sadiq, but seeing Jalen Duren in person was an experience that I was that he was the guy I was most excited to see in person just because of how much of the unknown commodity he was, right?
Right.
And in game 1, Troy, he comes out and gets a double-double. The second youngest player in NBA history by only 4 days to a guy named Dwight Howard and getting a double double that young. This guy is special. And he's the first Pistons player to do this since Grant Hill. When we talk about the not only the defensive talent that he is and his ability to switch on guys and how much he's been playing key minutes down the stretch. Like during the preseason, it was like, we'll see what he can do during the regular season. He's been playing significant minutes, Troy.
Mhm.
Jalen Duren at 18 years old might already be our defensive anchor.
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. And I think one thing for seeing him in person for the first time was his size. The guy's huge. Sure, he's tall, but he has some tone. He's a muscular guy. He already has an NBA body at 18 years old. I think
250 pounds of mass and just his arms look like tree trunks. Like
right,
the
right.
guy
No,
is
yeah.
just built.
The size I have to put out there. I can't say that enough. But I think with his ceiling too, we've talked about that in the podcast that'll be coming out tomorrow on Wednesday. But I think for me, just the fact that we can't even put a ceiling on this guy yet after 3 NBA games. And not just that, what the potential is for him, but what we already see right now. I mean, let's face it, without Jalen Duren, we'd be an 0-3 team right now. He won us that first game because of his physicality on the defensive end, because of his aggression on the offensive end. And how about that putback slam, Sean, that got all of us out of the seat in the second quarter?
Oh,
Uh, I don't think if you were somehow, let's just say, asleep during that moment, that play would have woken you up. So for me, I think Jalen Duren, the potential, but also what it means right now that he's already having significant minutes, and that even in the fourth quarter of the Pistons Magic game, he was playing significant minutes at the end of his first NBA game. To me, the sky's the limit with Jalen Duren. Cannot wait to see what he puts up for the rest of the year. And you've said it. I'm quoting you on this, Sean Murphy. This guy will never see a G League gym.
no, he's not going to see a G League gym ever. And if he does, it's going to be there to support the other guys that are playing in a G League
Right.
gym. Just from his defensive instincts day one and his ability to stay in front of guys and switch on multiple positions, but also even the fact that for the most part he stayed out of foul trouble,
Right.
during his time playing. Obviously, his game against the Pacers was not his best game yet as a pro. However, there's just been a lot of flashes of good already, and it was the question of how much was Duren going to see playing time at the beginning of the season. But with the Marvin Bagley injury during the preseason, he's been kind of forced into that playing role. And so far, Troy, I mean, just especially when we've seen Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren on the court together and the potential that brings, I've been really impressed. And I think so far, to me, the question doesn't become, if Jalen Duren's going to be in the starting lineup, but like how many more games until Jalen Duren gets a shot at starting? Because it seems like we could be very close to that reality, especially if he keeps up the rebounding and the defensive intensity.
Right, absolutely, and you use that word "put in" the rotation to fill guys like Marvin Bagley, who's out. But I'm going to say excelling at that role. Put
Yeah.
in, but excelling at that role. And I think
Yeah.
you're right. I think you can make a legitimate case that you could see a Jalen Duren as your starting center the first 10 games of the year. I'm not the one that's going to go out there and say that's my prediction, but I'm saying you can
Right.
make a legit case for that because of his physicality. And how about that putback jam two against the Pacers the other night on Saturday night? That was something
Yeah.
else too. Just that he's alert on all times, defense, offense. He is engaged in the game. He is out there trying to help his team win. The NBA needs guys like that, and
Yeah.
the fact that Troy Weaver considered him at 5 shows that his potential and shows what the front office and the organization thinks
Yeah.
about him and his potential as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also just the fact that you talk about the putback slams, but also it's not just his ability to play over the rim in the offensive end. Because to me, when on the offensive end, especially above the rim, I see a lot of flashes of Dwight Howard as far as the ferocity, the athleticism, his ability to catch lobs. I definitely see a lot of flashes of Dwight Howard in that sense. But on the defensive end, as far as his poise, as far as the way he attacks that end, I see some Bam Adebayo there too. And then you throw in his ultimate athleticism, and that really throws in, like Dwayne Casey and Troy Weaver. They've talked about Sean Kemp, and you can just see, his game breaking athleticism, how much he can really affect both ends in that sense. And I think, the ultimate thing that's been the most impressive has been how calm he's been mentally throughout these games. A lot of times when we've looked at the Pistons, I mean, the group as a whole has made mistakes, but Jalen Duren hasn't seemed to be the guy making mistakes. He seemed like he's been one of the stable players in our rotation. It's not just guys like Marvin Bagley that have been out. It's Nerlens Noel as well, who's one of Detroit's one our perhaps our our oldest. He's like our oldest big on the roster. He was brought in to perhaps be a stabling force and not have to give Duren this pressure to go in day one. But with the current roster that they're in, it seems to me like it's going to be very hard, especially when Noel comes back. When Marvin Bagley comes back, it's going to be interesting to see like how that's going to affect the rotation. Because Troy, I don't see a world where Jalen Duren's ever going to be taken out of this rotation.
Right, and the fact that he is the youngest player in the league right now, that speaks volumes too of
He
that he's
doesn't
already
turn
have
19 until December, Troy.
doesn't turn 19 till December, so he's still this 18-year-old kid who's getting significant minutes on, yes, a rebuilding team. But he's a guy that impacts winning already. Now, okay, there's only one game that we can go off of that. But if you look at a guy like Bam Adebayo, I'm glad you brought up his name. He helps not just himself, put up stats and become, one of the league's best centers, but he helps his teammates as well. The Heat were one shot away from even going to the finals, and Bam had a lot to do with it. Sure, I don't think he played great that series and had a kind of rougher playoffs, but he's still a core piece of that Miami team. And from moving forward, this summer, we talked about Cade, the face of our franchise. We talked about guys like Sadiq. What are we going to get out of Killian this year? Jaden Ivey, our first round top 5 pick. What's he going to contribute to this? We didn't spend a ton of time talking on Jalen Duren. We did talk about him, but not a ton of time, not even remotely compared to these other guys. And to
Right.
now be able to make a legit case that he's now a centerpiece, a building block to this future of this rebuilding team. We didn't necessarily need Jalen Duren to be this player, but we're sure as heck happy and we'll take it.
And it's one of those things where I don't think you talk about how like at first it didn't feel like we necessarily needed that, right?
Right.
I would argue watching Jalen Duren and seeing what he's brought as far as the impact. I mean, it's been pretty clear over the last couple of years, as much as we love Isaiah Stewart, that that in this league, you do just need more size
Mhm.
in the paint. You do need someone, around that 7 foot mark that can, give some form of rim protection. I mean, even guys like, there's even guys like JaVale McGee out there that are backup bigs that are
Yeah.
7 feet, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just the way this game works. But I think, with Jalen Duren in particular, I think, his value is shown so much just in his first 3 games. But I think as well, just with that game changing athleticism and with the fact that, he was able to come in and not, if he was the 5th overall pick, Detroit would be thrilled with what they have.
Mhm.
But the fact that they got Jaden Ivey at 5,
Right.
and then they got Jalen Duren at 15, and the fact that they're able to have, these 2 special playmakers get to go out and play in the pick and roll with Jalen Duren, which, by the way, on the offensive end, he's been better than expected. If he grows on that end, the ceiling is the roof
Right.
for this guy. Like the ceiling is insanely high on this guy.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is, Sean, and I think that's the thing that we're going to be talking about a lot in the next couple of weeks. Is sure we're going to see more production out of him. We're going to watch more highlight. There's going to be more Jalen Duren dunks, more Jalen Duren blocks and rebounds, and we didn't even touch on the defensive end because this guy is alert. This guy is blocking shots as well. I think. Yeah, the next year is going to be fun of us as Pistons fans, as I'm sure even his teammates are going to be asking themselves, what is this guy's ceiling? I would love to hear in the comments. I'm not sure if we're totally done here yet with the video, but I'd
Right.
love to hear in the comments. What do you think Jalen Duren's ceiling is? Let's give a couple names. What's his ceiling?
Yeah.
Because I think that we're gonna have a lot of conversations about that
Yeah.
in weeks to come.
Yeah. For me, dude, it's like the ceiling for this guy. I mean, we're talking about, some of the best bigs we've ever seen from an athletic standpoint. I really think that the Sean Kemp, Dwight Howard type comparison is not completely far fetched for him. And even if his floor is a peak Andre Drummond,
Yeah,
a peak Andre Drummond
right,
being the 5th or 6th option on a team alongside Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey is not a bad thing. It's the
correct.
fact that he was the number 1 option on that team back in the day, right? So, like,
Yeah,
it's the fact that we have this type of talent alongside all of these other guys. And the difference is, because I know a lot of people compare his rebounding talent to Drummond. The difference is, Troy, is the fact that this guy came in day one. I mean, I know Drummond at the beginning of his career was a great defensive player, but this is at the foundation of who Jalen Duren is.
yeah,
Like he's never going to be swayed to be anything other than a hard muscle guy on the defensive end. That's just his identity.
right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think he's a Detroit Piston. Can we just say that?
Through and
He
through.
embodies everything that we're trying to do with this whole restoration thing. He has the toughness of a bad boy. He has the playmaking and just the ferocity of a going to work team kind of
He has
guy.
the
I mean,
work ethic of a going to work guy,
right,
the
right.
attitude of a bad boy guy.
He could have fit in on both rosters, and he sure can fit in on this one. So excited to see
Yeah.
what Jalen Duren can do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what I'm excited about in particular is to continue to see him match up against
Yeah,
some of the best,
right.
right? Like
Yeah,
I know I for one am going to be really eagerly anticipating the first matchup between Jalen Duren and Joel Embiid. I
yeah.
think
Oh yeah.
personally that's going to be fireworks. So,
Yeah.
that's the thing. I really do believe when we're looking at Jalen Duren and like his overall potential, he's never going to be those guys on the offensive end, right?
Right.
But I do believe that we could be in an NBA in a world where when we're talking about the best defensive bigs in the NBA, you can't have that conversation without bringing up Jalen Duren's name.
Right. And I can't see Joel Embiid building real estate in Jalen Duren's head.
No, no, no. If anything, I think Joel Embiid's gonna look at his calendar and go, "Oh, I have to face him? Oh crap!" Because that's the thing, man. I wouldn't want to face and we're talking about like going forward in the front court that they're building. I know a lot of people look at the Cleveland front court with Jarrett Allen and
Mhm.
Evan Mobley and the height that they bring. But talk about the strength and intensity that the Pistons are building in their front court
Right.
that can compete with that Cleveland front court
Mhm.
for a long time coming.
Right. Yeah.
So
Absolutely, absolutely, and we're going to be having even a more competitive East in years to come. We've talked about that in the podcast, and
Yeah.
again, when the Pistons start putting the pieces together, this is a name that you're going to be watching on TNT, NBA,
Yeah.
ESPN. When we start getting some of these national televised games, and I'm curious to see what some of those guys are going to have to say about Jalen Duren because we're going to be talking about him from day one here on From Half Court. So,
Oh, 100%. And I think at the very least, you're going to be seeing a lot of highlights on Twitter, a
yeah, oh
lot of
yeah,
clips tweeted
big
by
time.
social media accounts because, yeah, he's going to be going viral for some of the stuff he's going to be doing. That's for
Mhm.
sure. But Troy, my guy, I'm so unbelievably excited for the season we have to come. One more thing, really quick question before we end this video. Is the Pacers Piston rivalry back after the Benedict Mathurin chatter, after the intensity that was that game the other night? I, for one, feel like as far as the talent that we have building, some of the dynamics there with like two guys the Pistons passed on with the Pacers and Tyrese Halliburton and Benedict Mathurin against guys like Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and the talent that they have brewing in Detroit. It seems to me like the resurrection of the Pacers Pistons rivalry is potentially among or is potentially ahead of us. What do you think, Troy?
Yeah, I think it's ahead of us. I live here in Indianapolis now, so I would love to see some of that rivalry getting bigger and bigger. I know with Benedict Mathurin, he had a good showing against the Pistons the other night, but also kind of struggled tonight against the Sixers. I don't know, he's a rookie, not saying
Yeah.
anything about him, but I just feel like Jaden Ivey too, with his Purdue Indiana connections, there might be something there. The media can play around with. So
Yeah, that
I
was his
definitely think
homecoming game again,
right.
and Benedict Mathurin was chattering at him at his homecoming game. So I feel like that could start some beef there too, man. That's the
Yeah,
beauty of this league. You
right,
never know when it
definitely.
can when it can turn up.
Right. So there's a lot to go off of there. I'm going to say, yeah, I'm there for it because, look at Tyrese Halliburton, their face of the franchise now, and look at ours, Cade Cunningham. You got the guards of the future, really, of their ability to score the ball and play make. So, yeah, I'm excited. I really hope that there's something there. And
Yeah.
maybe even another one with Cleveland.
Yeah.
So it's a fun Central Conference. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. And not even to mention, guys like Giannis, who's probably not going anywhere for a little
Right.
while.
Right.
But with that, what do you think of Jalen Duren and the potential that he has coming up in his career? What do you think of his ceiling? And what names do you see when you're watching Jalen Duren play basketball? Let us know in the comment section down below. But also, be sure you're following my guy, Troy Sergey, at Troy Sergey34. And Troy, my guy, thanks so much for joining on the video, brother. This was
Love it,
fun.
Sean. Anytime, man.
Yeah, heck yeah. And also, if you're feeling charitable, be sure you go follow your boy at Sean Half Court down here as well. But be
Love
sure
it.
you click and subscribe because from Half Court, we're going to be bringing the best NBA coverage and content that you can find and the best Pistons content in the state and around the globe. But with that, folks, we want to thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you subscribe.